There is a liquid you can make in your kitchen sink for $3 that permanently eliminates rust at the molecular level, not slows it, not delays it, not masks it with a greasy film, eliminates it permanently, forever. One coat on bare rusted steel, and the corrosion is chemically converted, not covered, not painted over, not temporarily suspended, converted into a protective compound that bonds to the metal surface and cannot be undone by water, salt, oxygen, or time. And before you click away thinking this is another life hack that sounds better than it performs, understand something. The Roman military used this on iron weapons before campaigns into hostile territory 2,000 years ago. The British Royal Navy documented it in fleet maintenance records in the 1850s. The United States War Department classified it as a priority materials solution in 1941 and deployed it across 3 active theaters of combat. And then, in 1952, it quietly disappeared from every mainstream hardware store, every auto parts catalog, every mechanic's shop, and every dealership service menu in America. Not because it failed, not because something better replaced it, because it worked too completely, too cheaply, too permanently. And the industry that had spent decades building a $400 billion empire on your rust problem could not afford for you to know that your rust problem had already been solved. This is the story they buried, and today you are going to learn every word of it. The year is approximately 50 BC. You're standing inside a Roman leather workshop somewhere along the Rhine frontier. The air is thick with the smell of crushed oak bark and wet animal hide. Stone vats the size of bathtubs line the walls, filled with a dark brown liquid made from boiling oak bark, chestnut husks, and gallnut powder in river water. Workers lower raw animal skins into these vats and leave them to soak for weeks. The process is called tanning, from the Latin word for oak, tannum. And every leather operation in the Roman Empire runs on this exact same dark brown solution. No one in that workshop is thinking about iron. They are thinking about leather. But one afternoon, an iron-handled scraping tool slips from a worker's hand and drops into the tanning vat. He retrieves it hours later, and what he finds on the surface of that iron handle stops him cold. The rust is gone. Not scrubbed off, not corroded further. Gone. In its place, a thin, dark blue-black film covers the iron's surface. Smooth, hard, completely waterproof. That film does not flake when he runs his thumb across it. It does not smear. It does not wash off when he rinses it in the river. It bonds to the iron like a second skin that the metal itself has grown. He tells the blacksmith tells the armorer tells the quartermaster. Within a generation, Roman military blacksmiths along every frontier outpost from Hadrian's Wall to the Euphrates River are deliberately soaking iron weapons, buckles, chain links, and tools in concentrated oak bark tanning solutions before deployment. Garrison maintenance records carved into wooden tablets at Vindolanda, a Roman fort near the Scottish border preserved under extraordinary conditions for 2,000 years. Reference iron preservation baths using bark solutions as standard pre-campaign equipment maintenance. That is not mythology. That is a 2,000-year-old military maintenance log describing the identical chemistry you are about to learn to use today. And Rome was not alone in discovering this. By the 8th century, Persian metalworkers in Isfahan were soaking sword blades in crushed pomegranate rind extract, which modern laboratory analysis confirms contains up to 28% tannic acid by dry weight, to protect finished blades from the extreme humidity swings between desert nights and river valley mornings. Japanese swordsmiths in the Heian period developed their own version using fermented persimmon juice, rich in condensed tannins, applied to the soft iron core of katana blades during the layering process before final clay tempering. The result was a rust-resistant core that survived decades of humid storage in wooden scabbards without degradation. In West Africa, Yoruba iron workers extracted tannins from shea bark and acacia seed pods and painted the solution onto hoe blades and machetes before the 6-month monsoon season. Tools treated this way came out of rainy season storage clean and sharp. Untreated tools came out as orange dust. In South America, Mapuche craftsmen used quebracho tree extract, one of the most tannin-dense woods on the planet, to preserve iron tools obtained from Spanish traders. Tools treated with quebracho extract survived in the humid Chilean rainforest climate for generations. Every civilization on every continent with access to iron and forests arrived at the same discovery independently, through observation, accident, and repetition across thousands of years. That is not coincidence. That is chemistry. And chemistry does not care which empire discovers it first. In 1813, a French chemist named Michel-Eugène Chevreul isolated tannic acid as a pure reproducible compound for the first time in recorded history. He documented its precise reaction with iron oxide in a paper published in one of the most respected scientific journals in Europe. For the first time in human history, laboratory science could explain in molecular language what blacksmiths and tanners had understood through practical observation for 2 millennia. Here is what Chevreul described, and here is what every subsequent peer-reviewed study has confirmed. Rust is iron 3 oxide. It forms when iron atoms lose electrons to oxygen molecules in the presence of water. The result is that familiar orange, flaking, expanding surface that destroys metal from the outside inward. Standard rust treatments, primers, paints, oil coatings, work by placing a physical barrier between the rust and fresh oxygen. The problem is that no physical barrier is permanent. Every paint coat eventually cracks. Every oil film eventually washes away. Every primer eventually lifts at the edges, and the moment that barrier fails, the rust underneath resumes exactly where it stopped. It breathes, it expands, it tunnels, and eventually it bubbles up and destroys everything you tried to protect. Tannic acid does something fundamentally different. When tannic acid contacts iron 3 oxide, a chemical reaction occurs at the molecular surface. The tannic acid molecules bond directly to the iron ions in the rust layer and convert them into a new compound called iron 3 tannate. Iron tannate is dark blue-black, completely insoluble in water, dimensionally stable, and permanently bonded to the steel surface at the molecular level. It does not sit on top of the rust. It replaces the rust from the inside, using the iron atoms already present in the corrosion layer as building material for its own protective structure. Chevreul called it a chemical conversion rather than a surface coating. And that distinction is everything. A coating treats the symptom. A conversion eliminates the cause. The rust is not covered. The rust is transformed. The disease literally becomes the cure. And the iron tannate surface that results is harder, more adhesion-friendly to top coats, and more resistant to further oxidation than bare-polished steel underneath it. By 1850, the British Royal Navy had taken notice. Admiralty maintenance logs at Portsmouth Harbour document formal comparative testing of tannic acid solutions against the standard lead-based hull coatings used across the Channel Fleet. Ships treated with tannin solutions showed 60% less hull corrosion over a 5-year evaluation period compared to identical vessels treated with conventional lead paint. The Admiralty immediately expanded testing to anchor chains, rudder assemblies, and all below waterline iron fittings across multiple active squadrons. 60% less corrosion, with a solution that cost pennies per gallon. The results preserved in the National Archives at Kew were not subtle, they were not borderline, they were staggering. And they were noted, filed, and then quietly left to gather dust as the industrial age arrived and brought with it a very different set of financial priorities. In 1939, the world went to war, and rust became a classified military emergency. Sherman tanks shipped across the Atlantic in cargo holds drenched with salt spray arrived in North Africa with corroded track links, seized turret ring bearings, and degraded ammunition storage compartments. Rifles stored in Pacific Island forward depots jammed shut within weeks as tropical humidity overwhelmed the standard gun oil preservative coatings. Landing craft hinge assemblies corroded faster than depot mechanics could replace them. Bridge components prefabricated in American factories arrived in European staging areas already showing structural rust penetration. The War Department launched a classified materials preservation research program in 1941 at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. The mandate was simple and urgent: find a corrosion solution that works under real combat conditions at a cost and scale that can be deployed across 3 active theaters of war simultaneously. Researchers tested over 200 anti-corrosion compounds in accelerated salt spray chambers. Steel panels were coated with every available synthetic primer, petroleum-based inhibitor, zinc compound, phosphate treatment, and experimental formulation the American chemical industry could produce. And tucked away at the bottom of the list, in the low-cost category, they included a 4% solution of tannic acid. Most of the high-end synthetic coatings of the time started to fail within 200 hours in those brutal chambers. The nearest synthetic competitor, a petroleum-based phosphoric acid primer produced by a major chemical manufacturer, managed to hold out for 600 hours before the rust broke through. The results were declassified in 1947. A 4% tannic acid solution applied to pre-rusted steel panels withstood over 1,000 continuous hours of salt spray exposure without measurable failure, not close to 1,000 hours. Not competitive with 1,000 hours. The compound that cost $3 per 100-gram bag outperformed everything that cost 10 to 50 times more, by a margin that was not close. Procurement officers ordered tannic acid in bulk for depots across every active theater. Jeep chassis, ammunition storage containers, rifle barrel assemblies, portable bridge components, landing craft hinges, and naval vessel fittings were all treated with the same $3 solution. Mechanics in forward depots mixed it in coffee cans. Field engineers brushed it on with rags. It required no spray equipment, no specialized applicators, no trained technicians, no protective ventilation. Any soldier who could read a basic instruction card could apply it. If you find a piece of World War II surplus today that still carries a strange, dark, purplish-black finish on the steel, you are not looking at patina. You are looking at the remnants of a 1943 tannic acid conversion that has survived over 80 years without failing. The war ended. And with it began one of the most quietly effective suppression campaigns in the history of American industrial commerce. After 1945, the American chemical coatings industry had a serious structural problem. Companies had spent the entire war building out manufacturing infrastructure, distribution networks, sales organizations, and marketing budgets around petroleum-based synthetic rust inhibitors and primers. These products cost between 10 and 50 times more per application than tannic acid, and the entire business model supporting them rested on a single assumption that could never be questioned. Rust must always be treated as a recurring problem, never as a solved one. Read that again slowly. The entire $400 billion global auto parts and coatings industry is architecturally dependent on the belief that rust cannot be permanently eliminated, that you will always need another can, another treatment, another panel, another exhaust pipe, another rocker panel replacement, another undercoating service at the dealership every winter. The revenue engine does not run on durable solutions. It runs on recurring failures. By 1952, the American coatings industry had consolidated enough market influence to effectively control what appeared in mainstream trade publications, what mechanics were trained on in vocational programs, and what products appeared on hardware store shelves. Tannic acid was not banned. It was not declared unsafe. It was not scientifically discredited. It was simply priced out of your awareness, relabeled, repackaged, hidden in plain sight at a markup that transformed a $3 compound into a $25 retail product that required a branded bottle, a professional-sounding trade name, and an aggressive marketing campaign to justify the price difference. Think about what that actually means for you personally. The auto parts aftermarket in the United States alone generates $300 billion in annual revenue. Corrosion-related repairs, replacing rocker panels, floor pans, brake lines, and frames, account for nearly 30% of that total. That is $90 billion flowing through dealerships and body shops every single year because you have been told that rust is an inevitable force of nature with no permanent solution. Every can of rust primer you see on the shelf at your local hardware store is designed with a specific failure rate built in. The fine print usually admits you will need to reapply it every 12 to 18 months. Why? Because those products are barrier coatings. They sit on top of the metal. The moment a rock chip or a temperature swing creates a microscopic crack in that barrier, moisture gets underneath, and the rust begins tunneling in the dark where you cannot see it. The industry wants the rust to survive, because rust is the engine of the aftermarket, and they built that engine deliberately, knowingly, with full awareness that a $3 powder sitting in every oak tree on Earth had already solved the problem before their industry was even born. Go to any hardware store today, walk to the rust treatment aisle, pull any bottle of commercial rust converter off the shelf, any brand, any price point, any formulation, turn the bottle around, read the chemical composition section on the safety data sheet, tannic acid, right there. Primary active ingredient, the identical molecule that Roman blacksmiths dissolved from oak bark in stone vats, the identical compound that the Aberdeen Proving Ground determined outperformed every synthetic alternative in 1947. They take approximately $3 worth of naturally occurring powder, a compound that cannot be patented because it is found in oak bark, tea leaves, grape seeds, chestnut hulls, and dozens of widely available plant sources, dissolve it in petroleum carrier solvents, pour it into a branded bottle, and sell it back to you for $15 to $30. That is not product development. That is arbitrage on suppressed knowledge. The 1978 Consumer Product Reformulation Guidelines made the concealment significantly easier. Under those guidelines, manufacturers gained the legal ability to list active chemical ingredients under proprietary trade names rather than standard chemical nomenclature. Tannic acid became proprietary rust conversion compound number 7, or stabilized iron chelation formula, or advanced oxide modification technology matrix, same molecule, new vocabulary, 10 times the price, and zero indication on the label that you could achieve the identical result with a $3 bag of powder and a bucket of warm water. They took a forest floor remedy that smells like a cup of tea and turned it into a foul-smelling chemical cocktail, specifically to make you feel like you were handling dangerous industrial science. The toxic smell, the milky texture, the professional-looking label, all of it is a psychological barrier designed to make the average person think they could not possibly make this themselves without a lab and a certification. They are wrong, and you are about to prove it. Automotive dealerships pushed the concealment into its highest margin form. Dealer-applied rust protection packages, priced anywhere from $500 to $2,000, depending on the vehicle, and the dealership's confidence in your trust, contain spray-applied compounds that are fundamentally tannin derivatives suspended in petroleum wax and mineral spirits. The tannic acid performs the actual electrochemical conversion on the iron oxide. The wax creates a visible surface sheen that gives the treatment a premium, factory-applied appearance. The price tag creates the psychological impression of space-age technology. You have been paying luxury pricing for a compound your great-grandmother used to extract from acorn caps in her backyard to keep the farmhouse gate hinges clean. And nowhere has this suppression caused more direct, measurable damage than to the people who spend their lives outdoors: campers, overlanders, hunters, homesteaders. Every axe head that develops orange surface pitting after one wet weekend in the field. Every carbon steel fixed blade that shows corrosion after a single night near a campfire in humid air. Every cast iron skillet you have scrubbed, reseasoned, and eventually discarded after the pitting spread faster than you could address it. Every vehicle frame on every overlanding truck being silently consumed from underneath by road salt, trail splash, and condensation in closed body cavities, slowly, invisibly, expensively. Rust destroys more outdoor gear than physical impact, UV degradation, and trail abrasion combined, and the permanent $3 solution has been sitting in the forest the entire time, locked inside every oak tree on every trailhead you have ever walked past, waiting for someone to remember its name. Now here is exactly what to do. No professional equipment, no specialized training, no shop, no mechanic, no markup. Go to any grocery store, health food supplier, bulk herb retailer, or online vendor and purchase food-grade tannic acid powder. A 100-gram bag costs between $3 and $6 depending on your source. That 100 grams will treat approximately 35 to 40 square feet of rusted metal surface area. A full-size pickup truck frame, complete undercarriage, wheel wells, and all visible rust on the body can be treated with 2 bags. Total material cost under $10. You will also need a plastic bucket, warm tap water, a cheap foam brush or cotton rag, a wire brush or coarse steel wool pad, and if you are treating a vehicle, a simple pump sprayer from any garden supply store. For the mixing ratio, measure 4 grams of tannic acid powder, roughly 1 level teaspoon, and dissolve it in 100 milliliters of warm water. Stir until fully dissolved. The solution will turn the color of strong black tea within 30 seconds of stirring. That color tells you the compound is fully in solution and chemically active. For larger surface areas, scale proportionally. A half liter of water with 20 grams of powder treats approximately 4 to 5 square feet per coat with a foam brush application. For surface preparation, take your wire brush or coarse steel wool and scrub the rusted surface to remove loose, flaking rust material. You are not trying to sand down to bare, shiny steel. You do not need to. You do not want to. The entire point of tannic acid is that it chemically converts existing rust rather than requiring you to remove it first. You are simply removing loose debris that would prevent good surface contact. 2 minutes of scrubbing per square foot is more than sufficient. Then apply the tannic acid solution evenly across the rusted surface using your foam brush, cotton rag, or pump sprayer. Make sure the surface is thoroughly wet. Do not leave dry patches. Now watch what happens. Within 10 to 15 minutes, you will see the surface begin changing color. The orange-brown rust will darken progressively toward a deep blue-black. That color shift is the iron 3 oxide reacting with the tannic acid and converting in real time into iron 3 tannate. You are watching the molecular conversion happen on the surface of your metal, visible to the naked eye, with no microscope, no laboratory, no special conditions required. Let the treated surface air dry completely. Depending on ambient temperature and humidity, full drying takes between 2 and 4 hours. Do not rush this with heat guns or forced air. Let the conversion complete naturally. Once fully dry, apply a second coat using the same method. The second coat penetrates deeper into any residual iron oxide layer that the first coat only partially converted, and extends the tannate barrier further into the surface. Allow full drying again after the second coat. After the second coat cures, the converted surface accepts top coats significantly better than bare polished steel. Iron tannate has a slightly textured, porous surface microstructure that provides excellent mechanical adhesion for paints, oils, waxes, and rubberized coatings. For camp tools, axes, hatchets, machetes, fixed blade knives, apply the conversion treatment and finish with a thin coat of boiled linseed oil or melted beeswax rubbed in with a cloth and buffed to a light sheen. This combination has been the standard tool preservation method for working craftspeople for centuries because it works in every climate with no specialized products at a total cost of a few cents per tool. For vehicle frames, wheel wells, undercarriages, and exposed body metal, apply the tannic acid conversion and follow with a coat of rubberized spray undercoating or a film of clean used motor oil brushed on with a paintbrush. The motor oil option is free if you do your own oil changes, and it performs as a flexible, self-renewing moisture barrier over the converted surface. For cast iron cookware, apply a light coat of the solution directly to any rust spots on the cooking surface, let the conversion complete fully, then re-season the piece in a 350-degree oven in the normal way. The converted iron tannate surface bonds to the seasoning polymerization layer even more effectively than clean bare iron, and the rust will not return beneath a properly maintained seasoning. For structural metal on outbuildings, gates, fencing, and equipment storage racks, apply the conversion treatment and follow with any exterior latex or oil-based paint. The iron tannate surface is paintable immediately after curing and requires no additional primer. A mechanic in rural Montana began systematically documenting his tannic acid applications to a 1997 pickup truck frame in the spring of 2019. He divided sections of the rear chassis deliberately. One section left completely untreated as a control. One section treated with a $30 name brand hardware store rust converter. One section treated with a homebrewed 5% tannic acid solution costing under $3 in materials. The truck operates year-round in heavy road salt conditions, the kind of environment where temperatures hit 30 below zero and road departments treat highways like they are trying to dissolve them. After 3 consecutive Montana winters, the name brand section was flaking. The plastic-like coating had cracked and spiderweb rust was tunneling underneath it. The untreated control section was structurally compromised, the rust having moved from the surface into the core of the metal itself. But the section treated with the $3 tannic solution showed 0 rust recurrence. 0. No new orange surface rust. No new pitting. No expansion of any kind from the original converted surface. When he struck it with a hammer, the metal did not flake. The chemistry had not sat on the surface waiting for a crack to appear. It had integrated into the steel. Same frame, same salt exposure, same winters, same rain, same mud. The difference was $3 worth of powder and 45 minutes of an afternoon. The reason the chemistry performs this way comes down to molecular weight. Synthetic coatings have large molecules that cannot penetrate the microscopic pores of iron oxide. They sit on top and wait to fail. Tannic acid is a chelating agent. Its molecules are small enough to swim into the rust, find the active oxygen atoms, and chemically displace them, replacing them with a stable carbon-based tannate structure that is permanently locked to the iron. The conversion is not reversible under any ambient environmental condition. The iron atoms that were oxidized have been permanently incorporated into the tannate compound. They cannot reoxidize. They cannot return to rust. The disease has become the armor. Every civilization that worked iron understood what you now know. Roman legionnaires understood it, standing over oak bark tanning vats in the mud of the Rhine frontier, treating weapons before winter campaigns into Germanic forests where wet conditions would destroy untreated iron within weeks. Persian swordsmiths understood it, soaking finished blades in pomegranate water beneath desert stars, building corrosion resistance into steel that needed to survive years of storage between battles. Japanese craftsmen understood it, brushing persimmon lacquer onto folded steel in candlelit workshops, working a chemistry they understood through observation and repetition that laboratory science would not formally describe for another 800 years. West African ironworkers understood it, painting shea bark extract onto machete blades before the rains arrived, protecting tools that entire communities depended on for agriculture and survival. Your great-grandparents understood it. The oak gall solution in the cast iron kettle on the back porch every autumn was not folk superstition. It was applied chemistry practiced continuously by working people for 2,000 years before a corporation decided that working people should pay $30 per bottle for the same knowledge in a branded container. $400 billion in annual auto parts and coatings revenue depends entirely on you not knowing any of this. $90 billion in annual corrosion repair invoices depends entirely on you believing that rust is an inevitable, cyclical, unstoppable force of nature with no permanent solution. $15 to $30 bottles of rebranded tannic acid on every hardware store shelf depend entirely on you never once turning the bottle around and reading the ingredients panel. But the molecule does not care about the brand strategy. Iron tannate does not check the label before it forms. Oak trees have never filed a patent application and have no plans to start. The knowledge did not disappear. It was not destroyed. It was not disproven. It was priced out of your awareness, relabeled into unrecognizable trade terminology, and buried under 80 years of marketing budget spent making sure that what blacksmiths solved in 50 BC would feel like a problem you still needed to pay someone to solve today. Chemistry does not expire. This knowledge does not belong to them. It never did. The orange rot forming on your truck frame right now is not a death sentence. It is just the raw material for $3 armor plating. And now you know exactly how to make it.